Most of you guys sell or are looking to sell on Etsy, and that's a lot about what I talk about on this podcast. But have you thought about selling on other sales channels? Could that benefit you? Should you do that? Let's dive in and talk about that in today's episode. All right, guys, what is going on? Welcome back to the Handmade and Beyond podcast. Glad that you guys are here. Thanks for listening as usual. Glad to hang out with you guys with whatever you're doing, whether you're driving, going to the gym, doing what you do. I appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in. I got a little bit of a funk going on, a little bit of a sinus thing, so if I sound a little weird, I'm sorry. I'm not doing it on purpose. I don't have a weird podcast voice. I used to work with some guy at a call center, and he would completely change his voice when he took phone calls, and it was always so funny. We used to always rag on him and tell him that he had a phone voice, because it was like a completely different voice than his normal voice. I'm like, why do you do that, man? Just use your normal voice. You don't need to completely change your whole voice for just because you're on the phone. But it just made me it reminded me of that. And how he used to always do that. So if I sound weird, I am sorry. Hopefully it'll be fixed next episode for you guys. All right, so this episode, I want to dive in and talk about selling on other sales channels. And a lot of people talk about doing this, want to do this, have done this. I am a big proponent of Etsy. I make my entire living off Etsy. I believe anyone that sells handmade goods can be successful on Etsy, because I'm a glass half full type guy, but I also believe in you guys, sometimes more than you probably believe in yourselves. But anyways, so a lot of people go down the road. If they're not successful on Etsy, they want to try and sell on other channels. Maybe you are successful and you still want to sell on other channels to boost your revenue. It's always good to put more lines in the water when you're selling stuff, but it can also be a detriment. So I want to warn you, I'm going to talk about this stuff so it can benefit you, but I also want to warn you that if you guys aren't successful or where you want to be with Etsy, and that's your primary sales channel, the chances of you being successful on these other channels is going to be very, very slim if you haven't sold anything on Etsy, because there's something that you're missing, either with marketing, the way that you're doing your listings, your product itself. There's something that you're missing. But if you are making sales and you want to boost your sales and boost your revenue by diving into these other sales channels, hey, I'm all for that. As long as it doesn't take away from your business, because a lot of people spread themselves too thin. Whereas if you put all your time and energy into selling on Etsy, you can boost your revenue in Etsy. Whereas if you try and sell on other sales channels, I can't say sale for some reason, but if you try to sell on other sales channels, it's going to take that time away from your Etsy business, when you could have just put that time into your Etsy business and grew it that much more. So keep that in mind. There's always drawbacks to doing this, but it could also benefit you as well. There may be a better audience out there for your product in some of these other sales channels. So it's always good to test the waters, put more lines in the water, see what happens. And that's what I want to talk about with you guys today. I'm going to give you 5 additional sales channels you can maybe dabble in. I'm going to give you a pro and a con of each, so you guys know what you're getting yourself into. I have personally sold on all of these channels, so I'm not just blowing smoke. I actually have done this. I'm not an expert on all these sales channels by any means, but I have tested and sold on these channels. All right, so let's dive in. The first one, most of you guys are probably familiar with it, and that's eBay. This is, I have a soft place in my heart with eBay because I've been selling on eBay since 2000 and off and on. And that was my first e-commerce platform that got me familiar with e-commerce and selling there. Great platform. The Pro it's the second largest audience in the world. It's the second biggest platform, selling platform in the world. So that's good. There's a big audience. There's lots and lots of buyers on there, which is nice. The cons are that there is a little bit of a learning curve. The platform is a little archaic in some ways. It hasn't really evolved a lot. So there's a learning curve with using it and getting familiar with how to use it, with doing listings. And then I would say the other con is there are higher fees depending on what you're selling. There's all kinds of different fees, so it's really hard. It's not a straightforward, so it all depends on how you're doing your listing, what you're selling, what category, what type of thing it is, and then that's going to be a different percentage. So that can kind of be a little bit hard to get your head around. All right, the second platform that I want to talk about, and I see people talk about this a lot, is Shopify. Shopify is great. The pro is it's highly customizable. Basically, you take and build your own website in Shopify, your own e-commerce store in Shopify. You can do whatever you want. There's tons of plugins, tons of apps. So whatever you want, you can do it in Shopify, which is really nice. The con is you got to generate your own traffic. It's not an e-commerce platform already. You can create your own website, your own e-commerce store, but the traffic isn't going to come because they don't know you exist. So you have to drive your own traffic. I see a lot of people make the mistake, I'm just going to go to Shopify and sell because I'm not successful on Etsy. Well, that's all well and good, but Shopify isn't Etsy. Shopify isn't eBay. They don't have customers there. It's a platform to build your website, to build your business, but you have to generate all that traffic. You have to generate it by doing marketing, social media, all the different ways, getting your dig in and get your hands dirty with generating traffic. So it's not, if you build it, they will not come. You have to generate traffic. It's not Field of Dreams. So a lot of people just don't understand, I think, what Shopify is. But once you understand that, it's a great place to build your website. It's a great place to have a website along with your Etsy business, just to add legitimacy. It's always nice to have that actual website, and you can definitely do it through Shopify. The next sales channel I want to talk about is Poshmark. This is primarily for clothing, for fashion. So maybe you guys have heard of this. It is an excellent audience for fashion, for clothes. That is the pro. And I don't know if you guys know this, but they just added Handmade to Poshmark. So you can sell handmade goods in Poshmark now, which is nice. But the con is also that they just added Handmade. The business is not centered around handmade. It's part of it now, but their primary focus, their primary audience is for fashion. So it's going to take a little while to build the handmade sector up. I'm not sure if it's going to be successful or not, but it may be worth trying to dabble in. But yeah, it's something that they just started up. The next sales channel, this is the fourth one, and this is something maybe you have or haven't heard of, and that's Go Imagine. This is a direct competitor to Etsy. It is handmade for handmade sellers to sell their handmade goods. They are trying to compete with Etsy, and all of their profits are being donated to charities and charity organizations. So that is the pro. It is super, super charitable. I don't know if they're actually classified as a nonprofit or not, but I know they said they're donating the majority of their profits to different charities. The other pro is they have lower fees. It's structured a little bit differently, so you can get different plans, and that's however many listings that you can list based on the plan. So the fees are lower, which is nice. The con with Go Imagine is they are still super, super new. I do believe their heart's in the right place, but using their platform, it is light years behind other e-commerce platforms, especially Etsy. You have to piecemeal everything together. A lot of stuff isn't built in. They don't have their own payment provider, and this stuff can change as far as what I'm saying. as they upgrade. I believe they will continue to upgrade their what they offer, but you got to piecemeal a lot of stuff together, integrate a lot of stuff on your own. You can't see your own traffic. You can't see who's coming to your listings. You can't see any of that stuff. You can hook up Google Analytics, which is an extra step, but still it's not as you can't drill down as much as you can in Etsy and see specific keywords, specific stats on that stuff, visits, views, all that good stuff. So you're really flying blind, and just using the platform too is a little bit harder to understand with doing variations and all that good stuff. So, and I'm going to leave it with, I'm not going to beat Go Imagine up too much, but the number of buyers also, they're still very new. They have a very, very small audience of buyers. While I think they're working on building that up and growing that up, and hopefully they will, right now it's few and far between. So it's really hard to get sales on Go Imagine right now. So if you're struggling on Etsy, Go Imagine may not work much better for you. Go ahead and give it a try. I'm never going to deter anyone from trying it, but I see a lot of people just bouncing from Etsy, and then they're the same things happening with Go Imagine. So just keep that in mind. There's been many competitors, direct competitors with Etsy over the years, but right now Etsy is a behemoth. They are the third biggest sales platform in the world, so it's really hard for companies to come in and compete with them. While I do believe competition is good, it can make Etsy better. It can make it better for sellers out there to have competition, to have other marketplaces to go to. They still have a little bit of ways to go, but I'm rooting for them. Hopefully they do well, and hopefully they upgrade their stuff and make it a little bit easier to use and better for the sellers. All right, guys, that brings me to number 5, the monster, which is Amazon. This is the biggest marketplace in the world. So naturally, you probably want to get on the biggest marketplace in the world because it has the biggest number of buyers. Amazon also has a Handmade section as well, which you can list your stuff in the regular marketplace or the Handmade marketplace. So that is the pro. The con is a super big con, and it is that Amazon is extremely frustratingly hard to use. You would think the biggest platform or the biggest sales e-commerce platform in the world would be easy to use for sellers. It is absolutely not. It is super hard to use. I still have all kinds of problems with it that I'm trying to clean stuff up. And when they make changes, you have to try and clean up your listings. You can get different plugins that make listing a little bit easier. But a lot of the ways that you have to list, if you're not doing an integrated third-party plugin, you have to put everything on, all your attributes, all your stuff on a spreadsheet and upload the spreadsheet, and hopefully you did it right. Otherwise, it won't upload right. So it's kind of backwards with how they do stuff, and so I don't really understand why it's not better and easier to use. But either way, there's tons of people figuring it out and knowing how to do it and do it well and make lots of money on Amazon. So if you want to mess with all that, if you're feeling really adventurous, you could definitely figure it out. I mean, I figured it out, but it is frustrating even now to use the platform. But your stuff could sell really well. Probably another con is the fees. Their fees, they do take a big hefty chunk with Amazon as well because they can. So that may be a little bit hard to swallow as well. But those are basically the 5 channels that maybe you want to try, maybe you want to dabble in. Again, I want to caution you on putting all your eggs in one basket, completely jumping ship from Etsy, especially if Etsy's not working. A lot of people want to jump ship. Usually the solution is more time, a more strategic effort, more consistency in your Etsy business. I'm always going to default to that because I know it works if you guys are consistent in your business. But hey, if you want a little bit of a boost in revenue, you want to put some other lines in the water, go ahead and try one of these sales channels and maybe you'll see some success. And that definitely will benefit your business as a whole. So I would definitely encourage you guys to do that. Again, to backtrack, if you are struggling a little bit on Etsy, I have a free guide for you guys. It's a Etsy listing checklist, so you can just make sure that you're doing things for your best chance of success, because usually the problem areas are somewhere in your listing with how you're doing things. There's a lot of best practices that will help you be more successful, help you get more sales. So this checklist is a quick read. I think it's 2.5 pages where you guys can go through, especially if you're a newer seller or just getting started. You can go through this checklist and just make sure that you're doing these best practices so that you can find success a little bit sooner and not have to go back and clean up a lot of stuff after you figure it out you've been doing it wrong, right? But yeah, if you go to handmadeandbeyond.com/Etsy listing checklist, you guys can download that free, get it instantly, start checking your listings just to make sure that you are on track. But that's it, guys. Hopefully that gives you some insight into these other sales channels, and some tips and some warnings on how to handle the other sales channels to benefit you guys the most. But I will be back with you guys with another episode really, really soon. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you guys later.